Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Divorce-a-Palooza. Tell me if you've ever said this if you're going through a divorce. Tell me if you've ever said, I feel like my life is falling apart. Of course, I'm sure if you're watching this, you're like, yes, yes, I've said that. I said it. My guest has said it. We want to address that today. We want to talk about what that feels like and specifically how to deal with it. My guest is Lisa Lisser. Lisa is an attorney turned certified divorce coach, a spiritual coach, and the founder of her practice, LZL Coaching. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jackie. So
So,
great to be
Lisa,
here.
I know, so great to have you. And I want to tell everybody watching that Lisa, obviously, if you didn't know this, went through a divorce and probably said, I feel like my life is falling apart. What do you have to say, Lisa?
So, divorce is one of the most dis um, disengaging actions in our lives, right? Like they say, of the top three things that cause distress in people, divorce and separation are two and three. So, of course, we feel like our life is falling apart. Everything we had planned for, dreamed of, looked at in our future was related to being a married person. And then all of a sudden, life has changed and you have to make big decisions and you're emotionally distraught. How can you make those decisions? You feel like your life is falling apart.
And people watching might be thinking we're only talking about if your husband came home and said he wanted a divorce. That's not even the case. Even if you're the one who wanted the divorce and you've wanted it for years, now that it's actually happening, Lisa, I just wrote an article about how people feel regret. They go, do I really want to do this? Because they panic and they get scared. Am I doing the right thing? Even though in your gut, you know you're doing the right thing. So my life is falling apart can feel that way, even if you were the one who wanted the divorce and if you've wanted it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you've finally gotten up the courage to say, I want a divorce, you know that everything is going to change. And you feel not only like your life is falling apart, but you feel guilty because you feel like you've made everyone else's life fall apart, your children's lives, your parents, your family, your friends, your whole social system. So now you feel responsible. So even if it's the right thing to do, even though you know it's the right thing to do, it doesn't make it easy and everything's going to change.
And change is really, really hard for people. I would say that's the biggest fear that people have, just change.
Well, it's the unknown, right? We know what we know. I was speaking with a client yesterday and she's struggling and she she feels guilty and is regretting all of her decisions from the past and now she's looking at the future and doesn't know what's ahead and she really does feel like her life is falling apart. But I need to remind her that she's got courage, she has conviction, and she's committed to making a better life for herself and her kids. So that's the shift, but it takes a little support to get to that shift.
Okay, I want to move on to three steps that you wrote in this article. And by the way, if you're watching, Lisa wrote an article called Advice for I Feel Like My Life is Falling Apart for Divorced Girls Smiling. You can find it on the website. And you wrote three steps that can be keys to a positive divorce process. And the first one is hire a divorce coach. Now, I want you to explain this. So everything we've been talking about, people could talk to their girlfriend, they could talk to their therapist. What is different about telling your divorce coach, my life is falling apart, versus telling your therapist and then versus telling your girlfriend?
So there's a big difference. So your divorce coach is your strategic and emotional support. So if you talk to your therapist about my life is falling apart, your therapist is going to do the right thing and go in deep. So, what does that really mean? What happened in your past? What led you to this place? And unraveling the pieces that got you to here in the first place. But it could also keep you stuck in the old story. And when you tell your friends all care about you, but they also know your ex and they know your kids and they have a stake in your life. And so they all have a stake in the conflict. So what they're sharing with you reflects them as well. Even though they may love you and want to help you and support you, they've got an agenda too. Not a bad agenda, but it's an agenda that's just part of the relationship. For when
Okay, okay. I'm going to stop you right there before you get to what the divorce coach does that's different. I want to tell people watching, this is what your girlfriend's going to say. Oh my gosh, you're so much better off. He's such an a-hole. He's such a jerk. I never liked him. You're going to be so much better. You're going to be married again in 2 years. You're going to be fine. And that's wonderful to hear. But you need more help than that. So go ahead, Lisa.
so a divorce coach helps you manage your emotions while you work on the business of divorce. So, and it's not just about managing your emotions, it's about helping you find your center so that you can move forward with more confidence. And what that means is, you, uh, as your divorce coach, I have no stake in the process except helping you get through it with strength and clarity and confidence. So my job is to say, okay, you feel like your life is falling apart. Let's reality check that. What's really going on? And then we can walk through all of the things that are keeping you up at night and how you actually can get the tools to solve them.
Okay, can I hire you now, even though I'm not going through a divorce? Because really what you're doing is making a plan, right?
Yes,
You're saying, here's what you want, and how do we get there? And
right.
that's, I do believe in therapy, and I think it's wonderful, but therapy, I believe, is more about preventing behaviors in the future by learning from your past and
Right.
why you did the things you did and
Which,
coming to peace with all the horrible things that happened in your childhood. Even if you think you had the best childhood in the world, you had some things happen that you probably don't even realize that shaped the decisions what you made. A
right.
divorce coach is, on the other hand, very practical. Here's how we're going to get here. I'm going to give you homework. Here's what you're going to do before we meet next time that's going to help prepare us. And also, Lisa, don't you deal with a lot of people who don't even know what they want?
Oh, yeah. So many people don't know because they never imagined life not married. And even if they imagined it, they didn't know what it would look like because they don't have information. They don't have the education. And that's another piece that the divorce coach fills, is helping them find the right questions. What don't they know? I mean, as you were saying, the divorce coach looks at where you are and where you're going, as opposed to your past and where how you got to where you are, because that happened already. What you really need to know is, here I am. How am I going to move forward? And that's what the divorce coach helps you do from a strategic and emotional sense.
Okay, so this sort of bleeds into the second piece of advice is ask questions.
Yeah.
So divorce coach, or really to all of your divorce professionals, how does asking questions help you with my life is falling apart?
Because part of the feeling that your life is falling apart is the not knowing. You feel like you're in a black hole and you have no information. You're a beginner. You've never been divorced before, or you haven't done it this way before. And everybody else seems like they're an expert. Like your lawyer seems like an expert, your therapist seems like an expert, but you don't know anything. But that doesn't have to be where you stand. So ask questions. What is it that you need to know? What is it that you want to know? What don't you know that scares you? And when we identify what you don't know that scares you, then we can help you find the information you need and the people who are the right resources for you at the right time.
And you know what else? Like, I think people getting divorced, they feel a lack of control. And when you have some answers to questions or you have people that can help you answer them, if it's like you're in control, you're taking control of the situation, and that reduces stress massively. I mean,
Massive.
Lisa, I don't know when you got divorced, but I got divorced in 2008. I had to figure all of this out on my own. There were no divorce coaches back then. It didn't even exist. Do you know how much I would have benefited? I would have gotten such a better outcome. I would have gotten through the process so much more smoothly and then probably had a much better relationship with my now ex. I had to figure all of this out on my own, and it was really hard.
It's really hard. I mean, I part of the reason I got into this work is because I needed a divorce coach during my divorce. Because also you don't know who to rely on, and sometimes you rely on the wrong people. And when you have a divorce coach, she can help you clarify who is the right person to rely on at the right time. And not in a way that judges your decisions, because the divorce coach space is a non-judgmental space. I just ask you questions. You can ask me questions, but more important than the questions you ask me are the questions I ask you, because it helps you go deep into what you really want and what you need to know.
Okay, last piece of advice that you gave in this article is build your resistance. So when you say, I feel like my life is
Resilience,
hard,
resilience, not
what did I
resist.
just say?
You said resistance,
Oh,
but
okay. I'm sorry. Let's just edit that out. Okay. The last piece of advice that you gave was build your resilience. What does that mean? What did you mean by that?
so what that means is you are going to hit obstacles. And what the divorce coach helps you learn is how to deal with the obstacles when you hit them. So if you're going to get a no to something, you're going to learn how to respond to that no. You're going to ask questions about that. What I also do is I help my clients build their inner strength and remember what they were strong about, what they cared about, what their goals were, even before they got married, so that they can reconnect to their inner strength, which gives them back their sense of identity. And once they start to remember who they are, then they have a much more resilient outlook because they know that there's a place to go. And it's not just looking back at the problems of our life, it's looking back at the strengths in our life. And sometimes it's hard to find, but when I work with my clients and I ask them to go back and look at who did they admire, when did they feel like they were in their zone, because their zone is really their purpose. And we can get there, and that helps them move forward because they remember that they once had more strength than they feel like they have now. And then we do exercises to get them there.
I love that because people getting divorced, their self-confidence, I always say, is in the toilet. Even if you're the most self-confident person and you always have been, you're like kind of a shell of yourself at the beginning of a divorce.
You really are, because your strength has been zapped. For many women, their strength has been zapped, for men as well, where you feel like you've been fighting, fighting, fighting. Now you're ready to do it. And actually, the fighting gets harder. Because once the stress of the divorce starts, everything that was ugly before gets a little bit uglier and sometimes a lot uglier. And so, where do you find the strength? You find it by sticking to your core values and remembering that you have core values and that you are valuable. That's a big thing that I share with my clients, that they have worth.
And you're gonna again hear that from your friends and family, like, oh, you got it going on, girl. You're awesome. You're gonna do great. But it's really not enough because what coaches do are they get more specific. They plan with you, and really it's a very different thing. Lisa, thank you so much for being on Divorce-a-Palooza.
It's my pleasure. And I really hope that everyone who listens to this and watches this gets the strength they need to take the steps they need to take to get to where they're really going.
I love it. If you want to learn more about Lisa, if you want to call her for a consult or ask her some questions, you can find her at lzlcoaching.com. And you can also find Lisa in the trusted professionals section of Divorced Girl Smiling at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Jackie.
And thanks everybody for watching.